Okay, so good afternoon, all of you, and we'll talk about the movie Aligarh today. We watched the movie in the previous two sessions, and there were certain questions which were posted to all of you on the WhatsApp group, and we are going to discuss those questions in detail to appreciate the movie in a better way. So, the first question, which I would like to begin with, is what is the significance of the night in the movie Aligarh? I'm sure that you all are aware that the video recording of Professor Siras along with Irfan, the auto driver, takes place at night. So the reference is to that particular incident. And apart from that, there are few other references as well when negative things take place with Professor Siras in the movie. So I would like you both to comment on the significance of night in the movie Aligarh. So we can start with Angashita, and then Navya will also comment. Yes.
So the night, as we see in Aligarh, it is again taking in Mahesh Dattani's play also, Night Queen. The similar aspect of the night being a sort of a space, an alternate space where reality, the identities can be, expressed as they are. So even in Aligarh, we see that they liaison between with the auto driver. The fact that a lot of these people get beaten afterwards, and these things that happen again, if we contrast it with the happenings of the day, we see Professor Siras is a very, he from the outside, for people who do not know about him, he would look like somebody who is a very upright, a very not upright, that would be a wrong word actually, a very, as societal standards would call it, normal, um, normal person. He is attending court proceedings and things of that sort. So the night becomes a sort of an alternate space, I think, where Professor Suras could actually, express his identity. But on the other hand, we also see that the fact that he was, treated badly as a person who was gay, and we see the, the kind of bindings of it in the fact that there are court proceedings in the morning. So the fact that he was punished for actually expressing his opinions and expressing his true self at night was being realized in the morning. So the night is that, again, like Mahesh Dattani's plays Night Queen. It is an alternate space where identities are realized and things, and it also shows a very cruel reality that Indian that LGBTQIA plus communities are living in India and in many other countries where homosexuality and alternate identities are looked down upon, is that the fact that they have to live their truth in the darkness, in at night, when when normalcy is kind of sleeping, is absolutely atrocious. And I think Aligarh shows it very beautiful, because in the morning we see a very a person who is trying to assimilate himself into this society, not entirely, but also trying not to be uh, what do you call it, like not to be ostracized from the society. He's going out, he's looking for houses where he could apply for rents and things of that sort. And there is this something that really struck me was the fact that in the later part of the movie, we see that we see the dealer, the dalal he goes with for a new house, to rent a new house, and this person is saying that we will not evict you from this house for a year. You have my guarantee. My daughter is going to my daughter you have my daughter's like promise and things of that sort. We will not remove you from this house. But again, a few moments ago, we see him being thrown out of his own place, like the place where he was renting, and that happens at night. So, and this promise being made by this person is happens in the morning. So it's almost like there is this promise of, everything being all right and people being treated well, even by people who are aware of the LGBTQIA plus communities, and kind of try to show their, kind of solidarity with them, and then try to go back on that promise when the situations are, kind of conflicted, when situations become problematic, and then they are like, no, we do not know these people. So I think Night in Aligarh shows it very well, that change in identities, that movement from, you know normalcy, so-called normalcy, to a very different identity, and how these people are actually punished for expressing themselves even when in a different setting and all that sort.
Absolutely, Angachita, very well evaluation of Night, and I'm happy that you compared it with Night Queen of Mahesh Dattani, because that play also uh, has significance of night. And that play, we couldn't watch it. I couldn't get it, and so we only did reading part of it. But Aligarh, we were fortunate to watch it in person. So it's a very well defined and elaborated by the director in the movie. A very good observation. And let's move to Navya. What is your take on this particular question?
Yes, so as Ankshita already mentioned, I think the night represents as an alternate space where people are able to express themselves. And the reason why all of the major incidents happen at night time tells us that even if people, we can understand that if someone has a different identity or if they're gay, we're still, most of majority of the population is okay with that, but they're not okay if they are openly gay. So I think this is also one thing which we see in the daytime and nighttime comparison. So people are okay as long as you're not vocal about it. And yeah, like it starts with the video filming at nighttime, and then gay bashing also takes place at nighttime. And when he's thrown out of the rented house, that also surprisingly, because why would a landlord come at night time out of nowhere and ask to just vacate the house out of nowhere? And he is also murdered at like the night time. One more thing I feel is that it could be possible that the people who rented him the house were in contact with the people who planned his murder, so that it could be easier for them. And because the way he said, maybe it sounded sarcastic just to me or something, that he won't be evicted out of this house and he can stay there forever or something of that sort. uh, yes.
Okay, very good observation, Navya. I'm very happy that you pointed out one more incident where night plays a very significant role, and that's towards the end of the movie. And Professor Siras, before the movie ends, has won the case in the court of law, and all gay activists celebrate the victory because it's the victory of the community. And After the victory, he goes in the evening home, and very early he goes to bed. And that is the time when the reporter Deepu contacts him, and he's actually sleeping at that time. And he promises that he would have a party along with the reporter Deepu the next day, not next day, the day after. And the next morning, there is a news which flashes on television as well as on it appears to all of us that he committed suicide the same night when he won the case in the court of law. So, the suicide also takes place at night. So, when we see that the Professor Siras as well as the auto driver, they express their true feelings in the beginning of the play. So that takes place at night. Even the conspiracy also takes place at night in the beginning of the movie. Then, when he's thrown out of his apartment, which is given to him by the university, is also vacated somewhere in the evening, and the owner of the flat, where he had already paid rent and deposit for renting the apartment, the landlord forces him to vacate it at night, and that also it's almost midnight, and the suicide also takes place at night. So there are three striking incidences which take place at night, and that's why night plays a very important and significant role in this particular movie. And as pointed out by Angashita, we can compare it with Night Queen, where the entire play takes place at night. So, we can assume that night plays a vital role when we are studying LGBTQ literature. We have only looked at one play and one movie. We will be talking about some other, uh, let's say, some stories, as well as we'll be discussing about one novel as well. Okay, I'm very happy with your answers, and let's now move to the second question. And the second question is related to the beginning of the movie, and it's a statement. Do you agree that Irfan, the auto driver, is involved in the conspiracy? The video conspiracy, and which is used as an evidence to terminate Professor Siras from the university. What is your opinion about this particular statement? So now we can start with Navya first, and then we'll go to Angashita.
Uh, yes, I think it was a part of the conspiracy because when entire throughout the movie, when there are flashbacks to their first night, we see the expressions of Irfan, and uh, it doesn't seem genuine, or I think he seems expressionless. Like even while he is driving back Professor Siraz to the apartment, and like while they are in the room and like say caressing each other, uh, then there are times when yeah, so he had opened the windows, and he had also left the door open, and he uh, it happened twice or thrice that he turned on the tube lights, and when professor asked that like no, I think he turned it off, and then uh, uh, Irfan was like he's afraid of something, or and he was making excuses and uh, trying every way to make sure that the video filming could take place properly. Also, because afterwards he just disappears. So, given that he was from a economically weak section, so they must have bribed him and given him a lot of money that he plays a part in this, and then he'll get the money, and then he can go and live in freely. Yeah.
Absolutely, Navya. Very good observation. Yes, Angashita, would you please comment on the statement?
So I actually agree with Navya and what she said, like the expressions and the fact that he seems very awkward and things of that sort. But again, if we look at it in a very like, I don't know if this looking at it from this angle could be correct, because the fact that Irfan seems very reluctant from the very beginning. In certain spaces, we see him very reluctant, and also the fact that he leaves the door open and things of that sort. So it's could it also not tie on to this thing that for one sake was this person is an auto rickshaw driver who is kind of in the lower qualms of the society, lower sections of the society. He is potentially vulnerable and also a little weaker if we look at Dr. Siras's position as a professor from AMU. uh, I think, somewhere along the lines, it could be very, far fetched. It could be absolutely wrong, actually. There was also this thing that, Professor Siraz actually thought that this man had some feelings for him. And Irfan did not, perhaps. And, he did not want to, perhaps, kind of. Say something, completely negate this person and completely negate this potentially powerful person, if we can call it that way. And he kind of went on with the flow. I mean, I could be actually wrong with it, and he did not want to kind of say no, because sometimes we find it difficult to say no to people whom we think are more powerful than us. And because we see ideas of this. Again, I'm going back to Dattani's another play by Dattani, which is A Muggy Night in Mumbai. um, I think it's A Muggy Night in Mumbai. Yes, A Muggy Night in Mumbai, where we see this kind of a tryst with this person. I forgot his name. I think his name was Prakash, I guess, and the security guard of this place. And it was similar. It was similar in that sense. There was they both knew that there was no love involved in that, and there was money actually involved in that place. But it was kind of similar in that sense that even that security guard could not say no to this potentially powerful homeowner in his flat. So I don't know if thinking about it in this line would be a very far-fetched thing, but I think he could not say it, and along the line somewhere he might have got afraid. I don't think his intention was to kind of intentionally hurt Dr. Siras even after he had given the video evidence, because he might have been kind of manipulated by these people into thinking that he could lose his job, he could lose the only source of income, for say, if we can call it in that way, if he did not provide the evidence, or he was kind of cohorted into this thing, perhaps. But I think somewhere along the lines he is guilty, but not like directly guilty in that sense, I would say.
Okay, a very good
Uh,
observation. I would, yeah. Navya, do you want to say something?
yeah, sorry to interrupt. I was wanted to add one point after Ankshita's. Could it could also be possible that earlier that they genuinely had Irfan had a thing for Professor Siras, but because given from which economical section he belongs to, the other people who were part of the conspiracy probably might have manipulated him and into taking the money and like yeah, getting a recording of the two. So this could also be a possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good observation. If we keenly observe the movie, we realize that there is a conspiracy which is hatched against Professor Siras. The reason behind the conspiracy is that Professor Siras is appointed as the head of modern Indian languages. And there is a competitor who wanted to have that chair, but it was offered to Professor Siras, and the person made it a status issue. And he actually wanted that chair, and that's why he hatched the entire conspiracy. It simply means that the other professor who wanted the chair knew everything about Professor Siras well in advance, and that's why he could catch hold of the auto driver Irfan, and he bribed him. He definitely must have offered ample amount, and that's why when he entered into the room, he did not latch it from inside. Remember the reporter Deepu states that there are three latches from inside, and Professor Siras mentions that, oh, he forgot to lock them. He forgot to lock the door. But it's surprising because you cannot forget to latch all three latches from inside. So he's actually trying to protect the auto driver because he, being poor, might suffer in future. So Professor Suras thinks very broadly, and even though he's sacked from the university, he thinks about others, and he thinks about the auto driver as well. Even though he knows and he is aware that the auto driver is definitely involved in the conspiracy, he doesn't say a word against him. So we can, after watching the movie, can conclude that definitely the auto driver is bribed and used as a tool to hatch the conspiracy, and which becomes actually a successful conspiracy, and the work is completed successfully, and Professor Siras is terminated from his services as well as from the chair of modern Indian languages. So uh, it's a collective decision that the auto driver Irfan was involved in the conspiracy. I'm very happy, Angashita, that you did refer to another play of Mahesh Dattani, and definitely it does have resemblance to our movie as well. And you, both of you, actually pointed out that the auto driver is from a very poor family. When Deepu, the reporter, tries to find out where Irfan is, we see the locality, and it's a very, it's a sort of a very poor locality where Irfan stays, and he's not available over there, and the reporter is beaten by some other members of that area because they are scared of if the reality is disclosed, then Irfan might be in trouble further. Okay, very good observation. Let's move to the next question. And the next question is about now we uh, come to know about two brothers of Professor Siras and his nephews and nieces only when Professor Siras is interacting with the reporter when they're traveling in a boat. So there are hardly two to three dialogues which are actually to do with this sort of actually talk about relation between Professor Siras and his two brothers and his nephews. So what do you think? What sort of relations Professor Siras has with his brothers and as well as nephews? So Angashita, you can begin now.
So, like most people in their families, in families and things of that sort, in families of homosexual people and LGBTQIA plus people, I mean, not many people are actually accepting of them, and this loss of identity and things of that sort is very very crucial in that sense. I actually missed the first class that we had, but because I had seen the movie before, so I did not I could piece it there. But I think that lady we see in that house outside who cries at the end, the old lady, is perhaps one of her his relatives, Dr. Siras's, uh, and the fact that these people actually kind of, even if we look at the original reports of Dr. Siras, the man who was killed in 2010, on whom the movie Aligarh is based, many of the people actually kind of are taking back their statements, saying that they did not refuse his position of being a LGBTQIA plus member of the LGBTQIA plus community, and which is very interesting because these things keep on happening, and it is again a reworking of that old social norms that somebody from a homosexual community is not to be treated as he's normal or things of that sort, which is again we see in this movie, I guess.
Absolutely correct, Angashita. And what's your opinion, Navya?
Yes, so I think that often we see that family members disown their own kinship if they have a different identity, and they do not. Some people go as far as saying that they do not want to have any relations or any association or any contacts of any sort, and I think this happens with them also. But with the nieces and nephews, as Professor Siraj had also mentioned, that children do not judge. So yeah, he has a good relation with them, and they see him for the person that he is, uh, a nice and a genuine uncle to them. So yeah, he has good relations with them.
Okay, a very good observation. Now, his brothers, both his brothers have disowned him because he is gay or homosexual, and uh, because they are contemporaries, rather they are elder to him. But his nephews are very close to him because his nephews belong to younger generation or new generation. And we all know that new generation or younger generation is also open in terms of their mindset is concerned. And that's why, they do not bother whether their uncle is gay or not. So they accept him, and they have nice relations with Professor Siras. And another thing, we can correlate it with Night Queen. Remember, the hero of Night Queen has two doors. One is an entry to him to his room, and there is another door which enters into enters into the other rooms of the family, and the door is always locked in the sense it is latched, and he can use bathroom and uh, kitchen, but from the other side. So he's also alienated, he's also isolated. So same is the case with Professor Siras as well. That is, he is alienated, he is isolated, and that is one of the themes of this particular movie as well. So uh, Professor Suras has good relations with his nephews, but not with his brothers. It's because of generation gap, we can say. Let's quickly move to another question, which is about what's the role of the reporter Deepu in the movie, or what is the significance of his role in the entire movie? Please comment on it. So now where you can start with.
Yes. So they show some scenes from his work environment, and there we see that how, because the industry of media and journalism is exposed to constantly all kinds of news, and often many traumatic and negative news as well, that over time they get desensitized to it, and the way they present it to the readers also is I mean, they do not have a role in dramatizing it, but they do not understand that there is a human or a person involved, and what they are going through. But in this case, we see that Deepu does not, as his senior had asked him that to give this news piece to someone else because they handle this kind of gossip, or she had said something similar to this. Um, so he took it beyond just making it a piece of glossy news which would get a lot of attention, and through like what media and journalism main goal is to make people aware and make a positive change in the society through it, is we see that happen in action in this movie through Deepu. So, yes. Mm, yeah, that is the role he plays, I think.
Very good, Navya. Angashita?
Sir, like Navya said, media being desensitized and you know and all that sort. And Deepu perhaps is one of those very few people in Dr. Siras's life, as we see in Aligarh, who is actually, kind of accepting of him. Because while others, his family members, his brothers for that instance, because brothers and the other neighbors, his landlord and things of that sort, look at him as a sort of a spot on humanity kind of a thing, a very negative influence. What will the children say, what will the society say, kind of a thing. Deepu is one of those very few people who is not related to him in any form in that sense, but who is actually accepting of him as a person, as he is, as a kind of a prolific linguist and a poet, and these conventions, and he looks at him as this writer and this poet who has a lot of inherent worth. Apart, the sexuality does not come into the question or things of that sort. He looks at him as this person who is a good human being, and who is actually not being treated the way he should be. He should be treated with respect, because he is in a very high position in an AMU university. He's a professor, he knows a lot of things, he's a linguist, he's a scholar. You cannot treat a person of that caliber the way he was treated by the others. And in the end, when we see that the section, he wins the case and that section is passed, and people are celebrating on TV, and this person is dead. And after that, during that ritual, Dipu goes and hugs that old woman. So it's like he understands where these people's thoughts come from, because it is an ingrained thing, it's an internalized hatred that we have for people who are not like us. He understands that, and he's accepting of that internalized hatred that we have. He also understands people not being able to walk out of that internalized hatred. And he also understands Dr. Siras's point, where he should be allowed to live the way he should, because that is what human beings are. We are supposed to be not similar, we are supposed to be different from each other. So I think Dipu is a very important character, in that sense, that the fact that there are very few moments in the movie where we see that Dr. Siras is actually feels confident, if we can call it that way. Because we see that boat ride, and he they click a selfie, and yeah, they click a selfie, and then again in the restaurant, no, it's during that thing, I guess. He says that no, I forgot the place, sir. Sorry, I'm sorry, sir. But somewhere in the movie, he says that you look very, no, sir, you look very beautiful. You look very handsome, I think, he says to Dr. Siras, and Dr. Siras smiles at that. So it's almost like this acceptance that Dr. Siras has already thought that he was not, he should not be given. That acceptance that somebody is like, he already thought himself to be ugly in certain ways by the societal standards, and Deepu kind of gives him that reassurance that he is also a human being and he also deserves to be loved, which is perhaps one of the biggest things that NLG people who are not treated well can get, I think.
Absolutely. This is, when the selfie is clicked at that time, only Deepu states that Professor Srivas, you look handsome. So it's when they're traveling or they're sailing uh, on the sea or the river, when they're traveling they are sailing on the boat. So uh, very good observation. And what I personally feel, Deepu is the most prominent character of this particular movie. It's because when he reads the news about termination of Professor Siras for being gay from the university, he approaches the head reporter and asks her that he would like to follow up this particular case, which is denied in the beginning because for the head reporter, it's not a news at all. But he is desperate to work on this particular news item, and then he definitely follows it up, and he texts Professor Siras and encourages him. Apart from that, he meets different lawyers as well, and the case is fought in the court of law. And finally, Professor Siras wins the case. And it's the last interaction is between Deepu and Professor Siras before Professor Siras commits suicide in the movie, because after they decide to meet the day after to have a party or lunch uh, outside the university in one of the restaurants. The next day, there is only the news that Professor Siras committed suicide the day before. So, Deepu has very crucial role, and he could win the heart of Professor Siras, because Professor Siras has very few friends in the entire movie. We observe that he has only one or two friends. So one of them is Sridharan, who takes a letter from him. Remember Professor Sridharan, who comes in the beginning after the video is leaked, and he takes a letter from Professor Siras. And there is another professor who has come all the way from Western country and had joined the university in India. So, who is also close friend of Professor Siras. And they both, not Professor Sridharan, but the other professor who is from a Western country who joined the university, definitely supports Deepu to run the case further. So definitely not professor, sorry, definitely the reporter Deepu plays a vital role in the movie, and it's because of him Professor Siras musters his courage and files a case in the court of law, and finally he wins. But the happiness is very short lived, because the ending of the movie is completely unexpected. And that's the next question which I would like you both to talk about, and that
So
is
I would like to
comment.
add a point. Could I
Yeah,
add a
please.
point?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yes, so one more thing that I realized, that Deepu is very important because he is not only a person, I think, in this movie. He is also a representation of how we need more inclusive media, because this movie was released some time back if we look at it from today's standards. And if you look at 2021 and Indian 2020 media in 2021, Indian media in 2021, we see that it's not very inclusive at all. Head journalists and head reporters and even the largest news channels in India are not inclusive. They are very conservative. They do not like dissent. They do not like people moving out of the conformed Hindu upper class norms, which is something very interesting because Deepu kind of breaks that, and he kind of shows how media should be inclusive. It should not, pass judgments. It should only report the story as it is and why something is wrong or right. Why something which is wrong should not be shown as right because it caters to the popular society or things of that sort. So I think that is very important because he's a representation of all the, the media which is not kind of constricted and conservative, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good observation. The movie was released way back in 2016, so it's almost 5 years ago the movie was released. And one good thing about Deepu is that when he is denied to follow this case, he keeps on insisting that he should get this particular case. And at one point in time, he states that if the case is not given to him, he might like to quit the job as well because he was really keen to follow up this particular case. I hope you remember the dialogue which he has with the head reporter. I forgot that lady's name, but there is a dialogue where he states that he would better quit and go and follow this particular case. And finally, he's given uh, the case to handle, and he actually, he's not only professionally involved in this particular case, but he is involved emotionally as well because he develops a very good rapport with Professor Siras, and they both take lunch as well at one particular point, and they also travel together. So there is a bonding between two of them. So he definitely plays a vital role in this particular movie. And let's talk about one more question, which is about the ending of the movie. Now, when I watched the movie, it was a surprise rather to me because I was not aware of the real story of Professor Sivas. But when after watching the movie, when I searched on Google to find out more about Professor Sivas, I came to know that he also committed suicide, uh, and it's a real story. So, what is your take on the ending of the movie Aligarh?
So I would like to point out, even before the suicide takes place, I think just a few scenes before, uh, the film shows us a parallel between the private lives of heterosexuals and homosexuals. So towards the end, we see that Deepu and his boss had gotten close, and they made out on the terrace of their office. So that is a public place because anyone can come in and uh, not, I mean, as per the laws of the country, like, I guess making out or anything of this sort in public is an offense. So them being heterosexuals is okay. I mean, okay, they do get heterosexuals to get bashed up, but that just happens on Valentine's. Other than that, we often see them doing this. But the thing is that if a homosexual couple, when they are, as per the law, if they were doing it in the privacy of their room, I think no, it was criminalized back then, heterosexual acts, but still they were doing it in private. And how does it matter if whatever anyone else's business? Yeah, so they show this parallel. And towards the end of the movie, uh, we know that Professor Siras had mentioned to the activists that he is not about the activism, and he's a simple man, he's a professor. And I mean, of course, we need activism to make changes in the society, but uh, not every individual, every person can go through all the trauma that he had to go through, given he just had 1 month left for his retirement. And we see that he had suicide in his thoughts of suicide in his mind earlier as well. And when almost everything was done, and given how lonely he was, and probably he thought how difficult life would be, or he even talked to Deepu about moving to the United States of America. And we see that he had tears in his eyes, and he seemed very, very sorrowful and depressed. And this kind of trauma, not everyone can.
Very good observation, Navya. Angashita, would you like to comment on the ending?
Sir, like Navya said, of course, it is a kind of a line that is drawn between the lives of heterosexual, what is considered to be normal and what is considered to be abnormal in a normal sexual relationship. Like that, the office she talks about. in the top, and even if they are treated badly, they will not be considered, it will just be considered as a sort of a fling, a mishap that has happened in a public space. But again, what happened to Dr. Siras and his partner inside the bedroom of his own house was something that is absolutely wild. um, the last scene where we see that the suicide of Dr. Siras, him committing suicide, and Rajkumar Rao's character Deepu coming to know of this change, this gay pro activist celebrating, as seen in the TV, and we see that this man is dead, and these people are like, the police take him out, and that entire scene is almost a sort of a, you know a sort of a binary that is created of how it's an expectation versus reality kind of a situation, where these people, the gay activists, the pride marches that we have now, we the heterosexual community is kind of used to thinking of them as very flamboyant, and kind of doing what they want, and therefore kind of affecting the sensibilities of the homosexual community and things of that sort. But we also tend to forget the pain that these people have to go through, and that pride, that happiness that some of them show, is a sort of a kind of a resistance against the pain that the heterosexual community kind of inflicts on these people, which is kind of shown by that, kind of, almost we could almost call it a shabby room of the professor, which is again contrasted with the bright sunlight, pride march, colorful pride march that we see on the TV. It is also very interesting that again, like Navya mentioned, that he refused to kind of go into activism, because this is something that we see a lot. Because it's almost like, I was going through a few posts on Instagram a few days, these channels which are run by Dalit community members, and it's similar, because many people kind of think that, especially people from the normative community, which is kind of upper class, urban society, heterosexual community, kind of think that, every time somebody is like, perhaps, on the outside the margins of that society, for instance, Dalit communities, LGBTQIA plus members, we almost think, and we almost kind of pressurize activism on them. We say that you have to go to marches, you have to do this, you have to propagate, whatever it is, that the identity thing that needs to be fulfilled. And it's just not that. Why is it that we cannot look at these people as normal people, and not think that everybody needs to walk to pride marches, and kind of be an activist? Because like Navya says, it takes a lot of power, it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of thing. Why can't we treat these issues as normal issues, and just like not talk about these issues? So that is interesting, because Professor Siras, also not wanting to take up activism, is a sort of a normalizing LGBTQIA plus identities in the academic sphere, which is something we do not see a lot. um, Again, the ending scene for that instance becomes very interesting. Again, the night and the day references, of the night being this where he commits suicide, and the day being where this glorious revolution takes place, and Deepu comes to know that the aftermath of the night happening in the day, where with his suicide they come to know about him, and he's kind of taken to this cremation ghat, and he's burned, Dr. Siras. So this is very interesting, because all throughout the movie we kind of, this is perhaps the only scene where we see him to be, we realize that Dr. Siras was not as kind of confident and very optimistic about his identity. There were questions, we saw questions about the same thought process that every gay person has to go through, this mental rewiring that they have to do of themselves, because the society kind of keeps on badgering them at every step. uh, so this thing, we realized, we thought that he would be confident, and he would be like, I do not care about this thing, it has happened, I have won the case, and it's over. This is a part of life. But we realize, it's only with his death that these people kind of see the kind of mental trauma that he had to go through all this while, and which is something even the audience could not have realized, I think, to its entirety in the beginning, if we hadn't seen that scene. So it is not always about the winning, and the realization of the realization of their identities and things of that sort, because it is also about the pain that these people have to go through. It is not just like, we cannot always say that somebody has won and therefore it is that that person has overcome everything. We have also have to go through the kind of troubles that they had to go through to achieve that pain. I think it's very interesting in the last scene.
Absolutely. Very good observation, both of you. I'm very happy that you commented in detail about the ending of the movie. And definitely, Professor Siras, he's shown as completely isolated or alienated throughout the movie. And he actually doesn't want to take up the case in the court of law, but he does take it because of the reporter, Deepu. He wins it, and there is no sort of any happiness. And when the entire proceedings is going on, we see that he's translating his Marathi version, a book of poetry, which is published in Marathi, into English for Deepu. So when the proceedings are going on, he translates the entire book into English. So, he's not bothered what's happening in the court of law, but he's completely focused on his translation work. Indirectly, he doesn't want to show frustration to the society, but he is deeply hurt. And after winning the case, he realizes that yes, even if he has won the case, he is going to be alienated, he's going to be isolated in the university. And what will be the use of that particular post when he is completely alienated or isolated from all, and his identity is now disclosed to the entire university. And the case was followed by media as well. So he was known to everybody as gay. And so, that also changes the outlook of students as well. Because remember, when he is terminated in the beginning of the movie, we see some students in the university, they burn the effigy of Professor Siras. So they also, discriminate. So that sort of frustration and insulting feelings he does carry in his mind, even though he doesn't express any feelings that, okay, whether he is happy or not, he's completely neutral in the entire movie. And he makes a statement when he speaks to Deepu that America chala jaunga, because people over there are very open-minded and they accept such kind of genders over there. So there is no discrimination over there. So that also shows that the differences between developed nations and developing nations. India being a developing nation, we are not that open even now to accept LGBTQIA plus people in the mainstream. And he wants to isolate himself once again from India and settle in the USA. But the next morning we come to know that he's no more. He committed suicide, and there was poison which was found in his body. So the ending is very significant. Even though he has won the case in the court of law, in reality he has lost his case in society, because the identity which is now disclosed to the entire world, he knows that won't be accepted by the society. And that's why he realizes that there is only one way out for this, and that is committing suicide towards the end of the movie. And that's why he commits suicide. So that is the ending of the movie, which is very shocking, but it's real. And the movie is based on fact. So the same thing was done by Professor Siras, and he also committed suicide. So when we observe the entire movie and when we analyze all these questions, we realize that the entire movie is based on the theme of isolation and alienation. So that is the major theme, and we see that in the entire movie, Professor Siras is isolated. Professor Siras is alienated from the main source of society. And if you look at and if you observe his body language, which is completely isolated body language. He doesn't seem to be confident, even though he is very intellectual. But he lacks confidence because of the conspiracy. We don't know about anything about his previous life because the movie begins with the conspiracy. So that is the last phase of Professor Siras. He is 64.4 years of age. No, 64.8 years of age because there are only 4 months for his retirement. And this conspiracy takes place, and the end is suicide. So that's very sad. And I was reading a newspaper recently, a recent newspaper which what 3rd March 2021, and there is very interesting news that in Chandigarh there have been 13 transgenders who have been selected in the police force. And this is for the first time in India that these many transgenders have been selected to be the constables in one specific recruitment. So this is a news which is after 5 years because the movie was released in 2016. So we can see that there are changes which are happening in India as well. So I hope you enjoyed today's discussion based on movie Aligarh. And in the next class, when definitely we'll meet on Friday, so we'll talk about one of the novels, and it won't be possible to discuss the entire novel, but we'll try to cover as much as possible. We'll devote 2 lectures for analysis of a novel. I'll post the name of the novel in the group, and it's easily available in the market. So if you can also get a copy of yours and read it, then it would be beneficial to discuss in detail. So thank you, and see you on coming Friday.
So,
Uh,
uh,
Sir, is the
I mean,
novel A Married Woman? So is that the
Yeah,
novel?
yeah. Actually, I'm
Okay.
thinking of either A Marriage Woman or there is another novel which is written by R. Rajrao. The title of the novel is Madam, Give Me My Sex, and it's actually based on the happenings of University of Pune Department of English. It's considered as a relevant novel. So I'm thinking of either of these two. I'll post. I'm in two minds, and I'll definitely post it on WhatsApp by tonight. Yeah. Okay. So
God,
thank you. Yeah. Now, any query?
yeah. So, could you give some suggestion of film or anything which can help me make clear about queer people? Um, um where it's about their gendered identity. So there are like 53 or 57 genders, which are like people do not know it yet, I think, in India, and people cannot express. So there are like gender fluid or non-conforming genders. And so, is there some film, because I wanted to work on this as well?
Okay. I'll definitely find out and I'll let you know on the WhatsApp group. Might be in a day or two. So definitely, if I'm able to get that movie as well, so we can have a session on that as well.
Sir,
So
also
that net
one film, the fire, I couldn't find it. So if it is possible for you, could you share it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share it. Please post me on my personal WhatsApp number. So I'll definitely search it and send it to you. Yeah, Angashita, you want to say something?
so that Netflix series, which is the Sex Education, which is, I think it's a very good like show of like different idea. It's not. It's more like a story, but the representation of different genders is very well done in that. I mean, asexual, pansexual, things of that sort.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
very.
definitely. So we will have one session on that as well. Good suggestion, and we'll definitely look into that as well. But next two sessions we will focus on novels. So we are done with movies. We are done with plays. Now we'll talk about a novel, and then we'll also have two sessions on short stories. And we have talked about some theories as well in the beginning, and we have to engage around 15 classes, and this is, I think, our seventh class which we have finished today. We have eight more, so don't worry. Your suggestions are welcome, and we'll definitely uh, implement those when we are actually uh, going further. Okay, so thank you and see you on Friday. If I feel like engaging another class, that I'll post it on the WhatsApp group, and we can have a few more classes with you. Thank you, and bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, welcome.